my new Model 3 Performance, and after 6 months of ownership, it's time for a full review. So in today's video, I'll take you along for a drive and share my thoughts and opinions on the experience so far. If you're new to the channel, welcome to Blackbird Productions. My name is John, and if you enjoy casual car reviews with a cinematic touch, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content. For those of you who are already part of the Blackbird community, think of this as my 6-month ownership review. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. All right, here we are in the 2024 Model 3 Performance, and I'm actually coming from a movie theater. I actually just got out the theater to go see Nosferatu. Highly recommend it. It's a very good movie. I love Robert Eggers. Anyway, nerding out aside, I'm going to start with my 6-month update and what's been going on with this car since I've been owning it. So first things first is let's talk about the big ticket item. That being the tires for this car. If you don't know, I made a video a couple weeks ago, I think at this point, just talking about the tire situation and how it got a nail in it. And essentially the nail was in a position where it wasn't salvageable, so the entire tire had to be replaced. And it kind of sucked mainly because the car is still very new. I think I have about 7,500 miles on it so far. And when I got the nail on my tire, I think it was around maybe 6,000 or 5,000 miles. So the tire was very new. So I was shocked that Tesla didn't offer this as part of their warranty. So that's just a quick heads up. If you get a nail in your tire and you have to replace it, it's gonna be a whopping over $400. I was about to say just 400, but I think it was like 470 something dollars. So it was a pretty big ticket item. Aside from that, I just got the tires rotated and that was $65. So that wasn't too bad. And I know some places do this kind of service for free, but I'd rather Tesla do it. So that way, if they mess up something or have to make another service appointment for something that they intentionally did, then I'll have the reassurance from Tesla to fix whatever the issue is. And I also feel like it's good just for documentation purposes, because when you schedule a service, it actually goes through the mobile app. So all of that is documented. But in terms of those two things, I haven't had any real issues with the car at all. In fact, when the tires are rotated, I feel like this car feels like it drives a little bit more smoother than it did before. I don't know if that's normal, but it's pretty nice. Right now, I think I'm actually in insane mode. Let's see. Yep, I'm in insane mode and it still drives pretty smooth. But anyway, on to handling. So handling in this car is pretty cool, actually. It feels lighter than it should. But I feel like I'm gonna get a very good idea of how this car handles this weekend because I'm going on a cruise with some friends. And we do this every month, so I've gotten to really get on the car during those cruises, but this one's supposed to be a little bit longer than usual, so excited for that. And I might even get to curve corners in this car, which is pretty fun. I'll say it's not as light as it looks. That was actually one of the first things that I thought of before just like even looking at this car. Like I thought like, man, this car is gonna be like super light and nimble, which some of that is true. Like it's definitely a nimble car, but looks can be deceiving in terms of weight. I'll say the overall packaging makes it look like this car is like super light and you can just throw it around. But because of the batteries, it's just very heavy around corners especially. But if you switch it to insane mode and you switch the settings to something like sport, because this car actually has a sport suspension setting and it has like dynamic dampers. I'm not well versed into what that means, but I look up a picture online and think of dampers as like that little springy device that you use to put your toilet paper roll on. That's essentially what a damper is. And it works in tandem with the suspensions to make the ride a little bit more smoother. So that's pretty cool that you have that option. But nonetheless, it's still a heavy car. And the turns are also pretty wide as well. That is something that I didn't know with this car going into it. I didn't know the turn radius would be equal to like a BMW 7 Series or something like that, something much bigger. But yeah, you definitely feel the weight in this car. Exterior styling, hands down, one of the best in the car industry, I feel like. It's very, very subtle, and I like that. It's not like full-on sleeper mode like an Audi RS7 or something like that, but it has like subtle touches where you can just look at it and tell like, oh, this car is fast. So that comes in the form of the rims, the carbon fiber pieces, stuff like that. And it also has a front lip, as opposed to like the other standard models, like the long range. That one doesn't have that. And it also has some active aero in the front as well. Well, not active, but it has like the little vents that go in, and it uses the air to make the car glide better through like high speed scenarios and stuff like that through the air. I'll say colors. I feel like Tesla has like a very interesting color palette. I've never bought a car where they've asked a premium or like an additional option for silver, so that's different. But for me, I opted in for the black, and I did pay a premium for black at the time of purchase, because at that time I want to say it was like $1,000. Now they're asking $2,000 or something stupid like that. I think it's either $2,000 or $1,500 or something like that. Definitely interesting. But the default color, I think, is pretty nice on this car as well. It's a silver with like a hint of blue. And I think Tesla's colors really do pop in the sunlight, especially that ultra red. And I'll tell you, it was actually a toss-up between that and solid black. And the only reason why I didn't go with the ultra red is because I'm not really familiar with that color. And I heard that people with red cars, they attract like road rage drivers. I don't know if that myth is true, but that was part of the decision that was made when I purchased this car. And then the other thing is, I'm just not familiar with red. I've never had a red car, and I felt much more comfortable with black because I've owned a black car before. I think my second car was a Civic. I can't remember which year. I want to say it was like a 2015 Civic or something like that. No, it was a 2014 Civic. I'll put a picture somewhere up here so you can see it. But it was a black car, and I enjoyed taking care of it, despite, you know, how dirty it got so quickly, which definitely is something that you'll deal with a solid black car. So it requires a lot of upkeep, which I don't mind doing just because I like taking care of my things. Anyway, exterior styling aside, let's talk about the interior. The interior is pretty nice as well. I'll say that I'm slowly starting to come around to this leatherette material. It feels very solid, and when you grip the steering wheel, you could tell like the leatherette material that they're using is pretty quality, because it's very, very tight. It's very tightly stitched. And it's like that across the interior. So there's like not any sag or anything like that in the leather, which is really, really nice. And I hope that this leather holds up over time, because again, this car has less than 10,000 miles on it. So you'd expect everything would be like buttoned up in terms of just quality and everything. In terms of the overall noise in the interior, it's not really that bad. I'll say at higher speeds, like right now I'm going about 60 miles an hour. You can definitely hear the wind and the road noise. But then again, I'm also in sport mode, so I'm actually in insane mode right now. So it's a little bit more bumpier, and you could definitely hear like noises from the outside. But they're not as bad as like, for example, like the Lexus that I owned. I'll put a picture of that as well. It's a Lexus UX 200F Sport. And despite sport in the name, there was nothing sporty about that car. Not even suspension. I think it was just like a trim or like an option of the car. So you get like sport decal, you get like fake noises that sound like a sports car. So it was just like an interesting car all around. But that car definitely had like a lot of noise to it, but it was also smooth as well, so no complaints there. But just like for comparison's sake, that's the only thing I can really compare it to, just because this is my first Tesla. From what I've heard, people say that this has less noise than outgoing models, which I do believe. I've never test driven one. I definitely would like to try one just to kind of compare the two. But yeah, this car drives smooth, and it's rock solid in terms of interior quality. So next, let's talk about the space and storage in this car. I think this car has very, very solid storage space. I mean, it has a front trunk. It has obviously the back trunk, as well as a hidden storage area, which it's not really hidden. It's just like a board that you lift up in the back of the trunk. and there's just extra storage in there. It's actually surprisingly pretty deep. I put like different like road items there, so I have like some wheel locks that I haven't put on yet back there. I have my flatbed lifting kit, so there's like these little hockey puck things that you put on to lift the car, and I have like little knickknacks like that, and it works out pretty well for that. I also put food back there too, and it's just like a nice place to hide it away, just because I don't like food in my interior. I don't like it to smell or anything like that, so I just stick it in there and it works out just fine. So let's talk about the cons. And I'm going to refer to my notes here. I have them just like sitting right here. So one of the things that immediately dried up for me was the fun factor around speed. The car is fast, and I'm sure it's going to be fun for you for like the first month or two, but after a while it does become like, you know, less fun, I guess, if that makes sense. Like the novelty wears off, because that's really what it is. It's just a novelty, just to have a car this quick. And quite frankly, I mean, if you're coming from like a Camry or something like that, I don't think you have any business behind this car. But who am I to tell you, you know, what to do with your money? But I was looking at like Reddit one day, and I was looking at this article someone wrote about like why Teslas have so many accidents. And it was like around people that come from like a more slower car, like a Camry or like maybe a Prius or something, and they opt in for something like this. And I feel like even the long range model, like 0 to 60 is 4.2 seconds. And who's to say they throw in like a performance update down the road like they did with the outgoing model and say, okay, you can go 0 to 60 in like 3.6 seconds now or something like that. I feel like the majority of people on this planet, they don't need that kind of power. I don't need that kind of power, honestly, especially if it's just like a point A to point B car. I don't think anyone should have that kind of power just daily on the street, like talking about, you know? So yeah, the speed has worn off for me, and I don't know, I'll put it like Doug Nero put it, on one of his videos. He was talking about how supercars kind of like fell off for him. One of the things he said was a lot of them just don't really have a soul, and this is one of those cars. Like you drive it and it's just like driving a toy, to me at least. But yeah, some people like that. Other people like me, I actually did like it at first, but now I'm starting to get more accustomed to it just because this is my second electric car, and it's just like driving another fast EV essentially. Like there's like no distinguishing between other EVs, if that makes sense. Like there's no sounds, no like unique, like very, very unique qualities besides just obviously the technology and stuff like that, which is another thing that I'm just kind of tired of, I guess. But anyway, I digress. Next con is around the broader car community. And I've talked about this in a couple of videos, and the fact of the matter is not everyone likes Teslas, especially here in Texas. And if you're going to buy this car, I would also buy it with that thought in mind, especially if you're coming from like a tuner car, such as like a Civic Type R, or maybe like a Nissan Z, something like that, where, you know, you were accepted by the community and, you know, people would talk to you, walk up to you, ask about the car and stuff like that. You don't get that in this specific car. I've talked about it before, but the previous cars I've owned, I use those as like business cars. So I use them for connections with people. I like to make connections with the local car community for obvious reasons. I mean, I'm a YouTuber and I like making car content, so I could always use cars to talk about on the channel and also review. But with this car, it's just different. People just look at you different, whether that be just politically or just you know, they just shoo you away, you know, when you try to, let's just say, park in a place where you're not supposed to be among other fast cars. We'll just put it like that. Okay. Not sure what's going on up here, but people are a little antsy. Anyway, my last point is around how the car drives in terms of its smoothness. And I've already talked about this a little bit, but the car drives super smooth. Right now I'm in insane mode, so I can't really demonstrate like how smooth it drives. And you obviously can't feel that through this video. So what I advise you to do is go and test drive one. Go to a Tesla Experience Center and test drive one. The first test drive I had was actually not this car, because around the time that I test drove, this car wasn't actually out. They actually had the long range, and I test drove that one, and that one was like super, super smooth. And honestly, I'll just come out and say it. Like, if I had to redo everything over, it probably would be like at least long range, because the speed is ample and the cost is also pretty fair compared to the performance model. I remember I was on cars.com just browsing. I might even make a video about this, but I was on cars.com just browsing Tesla models, and I saw a long range one with 20,000 miles and it's selling for like $37,000, which is insane to me. But yeah, I'm sure something like that would be a deal for someone. So overall, I think this car is pretty cool. I think it's a very special car for someone who is really, really into Teslas as well as just EVs in general. So far, I mean, given my limited experience with EVs, I'll say this one is the most impressive EV that I've ever driven. It's fast, capable, nice storage, nice styling. It pretty much checks all my boxes, and that's one of the reasons why I purchased this car in the first place. So if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. Your engagement up until this point has been immeasurable, so thank you so much for that. As I close the year with both the channel and also just like my general life things, I wanted to make a dedicated video to talk about that. Originally, I was going to put it into this video, but my thoughts were just a little bit too long and I feel like weren't very relevant for this video. So I'm going to make a dedicated video just for that. So if you'd like to see more from me and you'd like to see some updates around the channel, as well as the direction that I wish to go with the channel, definitely consider subscribing and also check out that video. I think it should, it definitely should be coming like sometime next week into the new year. And I think that's the most appropriate time to upload that video. It's not going to be anything like serious or like, you know, oh, we got to do this and stuff like that. But it's something that I have to talk about, just with the overall direction of the channel and things that I want to share with you, the audience, of course. I think those things are important. Just having like a dialogue, I guess, so to speak. So that's sort of how that video is going to be. So this has been John with Blackbird Productions. And again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.